Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling, well, a real historical puzzle. It's one of those contradictions from World War II that just grabs you.
We're heading back to the Western Front, 44, 45 maybe, and you've got these incredible German tanks, the Tiger, the Panther, absolute beasts of engineering.
Seriously advanced stuff. Thick armor, sloped perfectly, designed to shrug off almost anything the Allies could throw at them.
Exactly. But here's the twist, the paradox you asked us to explore. The crews inside these monsters, seasoned guys, they were often utterly terrified. Not of big cannons, not really.
No, not the things you'd expect. They were scared stiff of the American bazooka.
Yeah.
The M1, the M9.
That simple little shoulder-fired tube, I mean, its effective range was tiny, maybe 30 yards if you were lucky. You practically had to shake hands with the tank commander.
And it wasn't exactly reliable, was it? Plus, technically on paper, that rocket just couldn't punch through the front armor of a Tiger or a Panther.
It shouldn't have. So the big question is why? Why did this glorified drain pipe, this weapon that some even called useless, cause more panic than, say, a dive bomber?
That's our mission today. We're going deep into the technical details, sure, but also the grim reality inside the tank. And crucially, the psychological game changer this weapon represented.
We need to understand how this weapon became, well, almost a great equalizer. How it turned any ordinary soldier hiding in a ditch into a potential tank killer.
Right, let's start with the fear itself. Inside that iron coffin, as they sometimes called it. It's easy to see pictures of a Tiger and just think invincible, but what was it really like for the crew?
Oh, absolutely crucial context. These tanks, especially the Panther when it first arrived, they were game changers. That Panther glazes plate, 8 centimeters of steel?
Yeah, and sloped at a crazy angle, like 55 degrees.
Which makes the effective thickness, what a shell actually has to get through, much, much greater. From the front, it was incredibly tough, a real fortress.
That's the theory, the engineering marvel. But you climb inside, and it's a different world. Describe that turreted environment. It sounds nightmarish.
It was. I mean, think about it. A tiny metal box, packed tight with petrol, highly flammable hydraulic fluid, and literally thousands of rounds of ammunition, some high explosive.
Not exactly spacious comfort.
Not at all. And the noise. Relentless. The engine screaming right behind you, the tracks clattering, the turret grinding. Even with intercoms, just talking was hard work, shouting often.
And the temperatures, swinging wildly.
Completely wild. Summer, Normandy maybe, engine running full tilt. It could easily top 100 degrees Fahrenheit inside, maybe more.
Like an oven?
Literally. Then winter, Ardennes perhaps. You're freezing, below zero temperatures for hours, stuck in this metal shell. It wasn't just stats on a page. It was young men crammed into this loud, vibrating, incredibly flammable box.
And they knew it was flammable. That's key. The stats were grim, weren't they? What were the chances if you took a penetrating hit?
The sources suggest, and the crews knew this, maybe a 50% chance of being killed instantly if a shell got through.
50%. Horrible odds.
But the real terror, fire. If that fuel went up or the ammo started cooking off, you had seconds, maybe. Get out immediately or...
You're cooked alive. It's a horrific phrase, but that's what they faced.
It is. And that leads straight to that infamous nickname the Germans gave the Panther, not Allied propaganda.
The Burning Panther.
Exactly. Der Panther ist ein brennender Panther. It reflected the engine's early issues, yes, but also just its general tendency to go up like a torch if hit badly. That vulnerability was always there, lurking, no matter how thick the front plate was.
Okay, so you've got this constant low-level fear inside the tank. Now, connect that to the threats outside. They respected certain weapons, right? The guns.
Oh, yeah. They knew what could hurt them from range. The British 17-pounder. Serious respect for that gun. The Soviet 85mm. Same deal. These were powerful, kinetic energy weapons.
And they were visible threats, in a way.
Predictable, almost. You knew where they'd be. Dug in, camouflaged maybe, but you could spot the position, see the muzzle blast, maybe even suppress it with your own fire. It was tank versus anti-tank gun. A known quantity.
But the bazooka... it just broke that whole equation, didn't it? It wasn't predictable.
Not at all. That's the psychological crack, the core of the fear.
Yeah.
Your thick front armor protects you from the big gun half a mile away. But the bazooka team, 2 guys, no big emplacement needed, no vehicle leaving tracks.
They could be anywhere, literally anywhere.
Behind any hedge, in any bombed-out basement, up a tree sometimes, they could just materialize. And suddenly, the threat isn't out there. It's right here, 10 yards away.
That shift from engaging a known enemy position to suddenly realizing the guy in the ditch next to you might kill you. That must have been paralyzing.
It flipped the switch from offense to pure survival mode instantly. Their multi-million Reichsmark Marvel, safe from another tank maybe, was suddenly vulnerable to any infantryman with 15 pounds of steel tube.
It's ironic, too, because the Germans themselves didn't initially rate the bazooka very highly at all.
No, quite the opposite. When they first saw the M1 bazooka, Operation Torch North Africa, late 42, it was pretty underwhelming.
Didn't do much even against their medium tanks, like the Panzer IV.
Barely scratched the paint sometimes, especially on the front. German intelligence reports from that time basically dismissed it. Minor threat, they called it. A nuisance weapon for infantry, not a serious anti-tank solution.
But then, the Germans did what they did best. They didn't just dismiss it based on early performance. They captured some.
They did. Tunisia, early 43, February maybe, got their hands on intact M1s, shipped them straight back to Germany, and they didn't just look at the rocket's performance, they looked at the design.
And what impressed them wasn't the power, but the idea.
Exactly. The sheer brilliance of the concept. Three things stood out. The simple smoothbore tube, easy to make. The electrical firing system, reliable enough. And critically, the shaped charge warhead. The heat round.
High explosive anti-tank.
Right. Plus, it weighed next to nothing 15 pounds. Two guys could carry it and plenty of ammo. Minimal training needed.
It was portable, cheap, and it put tank-killing power into the hands of the average soldier. That must have been the light bulb moment for German engineers.
It absolutely was, the realization. This simple thing allows infantry to destroy our expensive panzers. That changes everything.
And the proof is what they did next, isn't it? They didn't just analyze it.
Yeah.
They copied it and made it bigger.
Immediately. That captured bazooka directly led to the Raketen Panzerbuchse, better known as the Panzerschreck. Tank terror.
Which was essentially supersized bazooka.
Totally. They took the American 2.36-inch concept and blew it up to 88 millimeters. Why 88 millimeter? Because they knew from their own guns that an 88 millimeter shell packed a serious punch. An 88 millimeter shaped charge that could penetrate over 8 inches of armor.
So by building the Panzerschreck, they were basically saying, okay, the American version might be a bit weak right now, but this idea is absolutely lethal.
Precisely. It's the ultimate validation. They didn't dismiss the concept. They embraced it and improved upon it because they understood its terrifying potential far better than perhaps even some Allied commanders did initially.
It's important to grasp the difference in how these weapons work, too. The big anti-tank guns they respected, those were kinetic energy, right? Brute force.
Yeah, basically throwing a solid metal slug very, very fast. It needs immense speed and weight to punch through thick steel. More armor means you need an even bigger, faster slug.
But the bazooka and the Panzerschreck, with that heat round, different physics entirely.
Completely different. It's not about speed or weight of the projectile itself. The shaped charge uses the explosion to focus its energy. It collapses a metal liner, usually copper, into an incredibly thin, incredibly fast, incredibly hot jet of molten metal.
Like a plasma blowtorch almost.
Very much like that.
Okay.
And this jet travels so fast, it doesn't punch through the armor so much as it melts and shears its way through. The key isn't hitting it super hard. It's hitting it squarely, perpendicularly, if possible, to let that jet do its work.
Okay, so let's go back to the American bazooka specs. The improved M9, the M9A1, they got better rockets. What was the official penetration?
Under ideal conditions, hitting flat, perpendicular armor. Maybe 4 inches. Some sources might push it to 5, but 4 is a more realistic average for the M9's rocket.
4 inches. Now, compare that to the tanks they feared. Tiger Eye frontal armor.
4 inches, roughly 100 millimeters. But crucially, it was very high quality, face-hardened steel, and often slightly sloped.
And the Panther's front glacis plate.
Only 3 inches thick, about 80 millimeter. But, as we said, sloped back at that extreme 55-degree angle. That slope meant a bazooka rocket hitting it had to penetrate effectively much more than 3 inches of steel, and it was very likely to just ricochet off.
So statistically, on paper, against the front of these tanks, the bazooka should have been mostly useless.
It should have bounced off or failed to penetrate, which is why you get figures like General Patton apparently calling it a last resort weapon, something defensive, not for actively hunting tigers. Some U.S. units even reportedly stopped carrying them for a while.
Which just deepens the paradox, doesn't it? A weapon that senior commanders sometimes distrusted, that technically couldn't beat the best frontal armor, was the one the German crews dreaded most.
Exactly. And the question is, was that fear based on actual kills, or was it more psychological? Did bazookas actually knock out lots of tigers and panthers, or did they just make the crews think they could be knocked out at any moment?
That's a really good point. We shouldn't overstate the kill counts attributed solely to the bazooka, especially against heavy tanks from the front.
Probably not, but the fear wasn't necessarily about getting a confirmed kill every time. It was about the potential. It was about the fact that the threat was now everywhere, invisible, and operating at point-blank range where armor angling mattered less if they hit the side or rear.
So the technical failure against the front plate paradoxically made the psychological threat even worse, because it forced the bazooka teams to get close and hit the vulnerable spots.
Precisely. It drove the tactics. You don't shoot at a panther's gloses from 100 yards. You wait, you let it get close, you let it expose its flank or rear in a narrow street, and then you hit it where you know it hurts.
A perfect tactical trap, born from the weapon's own limitations.
Right.
And the Germans knew this worked because they were doing the same thing with their Panzerschrecks and Panzerfausts.
They knew the concept was deadly. They were frantically issuing Panzerfausts by the million late in the war. They understood that close-range, shaped charge ambushes were the great equalizer against superior armor. They just couldn't stop the Allies from using the same tactic against them with the bazooka.
Which brings us squarely to the psychology. The invisible enemy. That's the heart of it, isn't it?
Absolutely. Operating a 70-ton Tiger, you expect a certain respect. You have range, you have armor. The bazooka just spat on both those advantages.
It's that feeling of being hunted from the shadows. Driving through what looks like a deserted village or along a quiet hedgerow-lined road in Normandy, and then bang, attack from nowhere.
And you genuinely couldn't reliably spot the teams beforehand. Like we said, no big gun emplacement, no truck parked nearby, just two guys.
Hiding where? Give us some examples.
Oh, anywhere. A flooded ditch beside the road, buried in a haystack, up in the rafters of a barn, crouched behind a stone wall. The second floor of a bombed-out house was classic.
Easy to conceal themselves.
Yeah.
Quick to set up.
Seconds.
Yeah.
Pull the bazooka out, load the rocket, shoulder it. Less than 10 seconds from spotting the tank to being ready to fire.
And the way they used it, the doctrine, amplified that fear. They didn't take pot shots from a distance.
Yeah, that was key. Doctrine stressed waiting. Maximum effective range, maybe 50 yards, but ideally closer. 30 yards. Point blank.
Why so close? Better chance of hitting.
Better chance of hitting, yes, but also hitting a specific spot. And critically, at that range, the tank has no time to react. It's committed. Maybe turning a corner, navigating rubble. It's slow, vulnerable. Evasion is impossible.
That moment of realization for the crew, seeing the flash or hearing the whoosh at 30 yards.
Must have been pure ice in the veins. You know you're hit before you feel it.
And certain environments just played perfectly into the bazooka's strengths. Normandy's hedgerows, the bocages.
Oh, the bocage was a nightmare for tankers and a dream for bazooka teams. Those thick, ancient hedgerows, sometimes 10 feet high, on top of earthen banks, perfect cover.
Natural ambush alleys.
Exactly. Teams would set up at junctions. Standard tactic, wait for a column, hit the first tank to block the road, then hit the last tank to trap the ones in the middle.
Creating a killing zone.
A perfect killing zone. The trapped tanks are sitting ducks for more bazookas, artillery, machine guns, anything.
And if hedgerows were bad, urban combat sounds even worse. Fighting street by street in places like Aachen or Caen.
Even more terrifying for a tanker. Every pile of rubble is cover. Every cellar window is a potential firing port. Every upstairs window is a threat.
Especially that threat from above firing down.
That's crucial, because tankers knew, okay, my front armor is thick, but the top, the engine deck, the turret roof, that was thin steel, maybe an inch, sometimes less, only meant to stop shell fragments, not a direct hit from a heat round.
So a team in a second floor window
could wait for the tank to pass underneath and fire straight down. Guaranteed penetration, often hitting the engine or ammunition, catastrophic. Or a team in a cellar could knock a hole through the wall at street level and aim for the tracks or suspension, immobilize it.
And the Germans knew exactly how devastating this was because they were inflicting it themselves with Panzerschrecks. You mentioned Stanley Szyslowski's account near Caen.
Yes, a Canadian soldier describing the aftermath of Panzerschreck hits on Allied Shermans. Turrets blown clean off, crews instantly incinerated. German tankers saw this happen to Allied tanks. They knew exactly what that shaped charge could do.
So when they rolled into a town square, knowing that same weapon could be pointing down at them from any window, the anxiety must have been off the charts.
Every shadow, every doorway, every pile of bricks became a source of potential instant death.
But what about the smoke trail? This always seems like a giveaway. The bazooka fires, leaves this huge plume of white smoke. Surely that tells the tank crew exactly where the shot came from.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But it rarely helped them in the crucial seconds. 3 main reasons why.
Okay, what's the first?
Speed. The rocket's moving at over 300 feet per second. At that typical engagement range, say 30, 40 yards, the time from launch to impact is less than half a second.
Half a second.
By the time the tank commander sees the smoke, processes it, yells, "Bazooka, 3 o'clock!" the rocket has already hit. The information is too late.
Okay, speed is 1. What's 2?
Displacement. The Bazooka team didn't stick around to admire their handiwork. The doctrine was fire and move. Instantly. Drop the tube, dive for cover, melt back into the rubble, disappear into a cellar.
So even if the machine gunner swings the turret around,
He's aiming at empty space. The smoke cloud is there, marking where they were half a second ago, but the shooters are gone, vanished.
right, speed, displacement. And the third reason,
This is the big one, the psychological shift. Seeing that smoke plume, even if the shot misses, confirms your absolute worst fear. You are under attack right now at point-blank range by an enemy you didn't see.
your whole focus just snaps.
Instantly. From advance, secure the crossroads, engage that target, to, oh my god, where did that come from? Are we hit? Are we on fire? Where's the next one coming from? It shatters the crew's focus, disrupts the mission, often halts the entire advance.
So the smoke wasn't a useful warning sign, it was confirmation that the invisible enemy had just struck.
Exactly. It signaled that the danger was immediate, intimate, and lethal. The fear wasn't seeing the smoke. The fear was what the smoke meant.
Which leads us to the actual damage. The bazooka didn't always need to brew up the tank to be effective. It was about the mission kill.
Precisely. The crews knew their front armor was strong, but the bazooka teams weren't aiming there if they could help it. They were exploiting the known weaknesses.
We talked about the top armor. What about the sides? How vulnerable were they?
Very vulnerable. The Panther's side armor, 1.6 inches? Even sloped at 40 degrees. That wasn't stopping a perpendicular bazooka hit, especially low down on the hull or the turret side.
And the Tiger. Thicker sides, right?
3 inches on the Tiger Eye side. Better, but still absolutely penetrable by the M9's shaped charge if hit reasonably flat. Remember that focus jet cares less about thickness than kinetic rounds do.
And the rear armor.
Yeah.
Protecting the engine, transmission.
Usually even thinner, often less than 2 inches. A hit there was disastrous. Engine fire, damaged radiator, smashed transmission. Any of those could disable the tank completely.
Turning your 60-ton Predator into a stationary target.
Exactly. A mission kill. The tank hasn't exploded, maybe, but it's out of the fight. It's vulnerable.
Let's talk about what happens inside when that heat jet gets through. Or even if it almost gets through. It's not just a neat hole, is it?
Oh god, no. It's horrific. That jet of molten metal, traveling at thousands of meters per second, punches through the plate, but it doesn't stop there. It sprays molten metal fragments around the inside of the crew compartment.
And even if it doesn't fully penetrate, there's spalling.
Yes, spalling is terrifying. The shockwave of the impact on the outside of the armor can be so intense that it blasts fragments off the inside surface of the plate.
So the armor itself becomes shrapnel inside the tank.
Exactly. Chunks of superheated steel from the inside face of the armor, plus the sheer blast pressure flying around the compartment. It rips through flesh, wrecks equipment, detonates ammunition. Even a non-penetrating hit could kill or wound the crew through spalling.
So the armor holds, but the crew is shredded by their own protection.
That's the grim reality. And again, that's a mission kill. Maybe the tank can still drive, but the gunner's dead. Or the optics are shattered. Or the radio's destroyed. A single bazooka round might not guarantee destruction, but it could absolutely render the tank ineffective.
And multiple hits.
Cumulative effect. Damage tracks, damage external stowage, rattle the crew, maybe start a small fire that forces them to bail out. The goal wasn't always annihilation. Often it was just making the tank stop, back off, or be too scared to push forward. The bazooka excelled at that.
And the ultimate example of exploiting vulnerability has to be Major Charles Carpenter. Bazooka Charlie.
What a story. Absolutely nuts, but brilliant. This guy's flying an L-4 Grasshopper, basically a fabric kite with an engine. Unarmed artillery spotter plane.
Tiny, slow, fragile.
Completely. And he gets frustrated just watching, so he somehow gets ordnance guys to strap 6 M9 bazookas under his wings, 3 per side, wires them up so he can fire them from the cockpit.
He weaponized a spotter plane with bazookas, nicknamed it Rosie the Rocketer.
And he flew it low, treetop level often, over German tank columns.
And he wasn't aiming for the front.
No. He knew that was pointless. He'd dive down and fire the rockets almost straight down onto the engine decks and turret roofs.
Hitting that thin top armor we talked about, Less than an inch thick?
against which the bazooka's heat round was devastating. Guaranteed penetration straight into the engine or crew compartment.
And he actually got credited kills doing this.
Records say 6 tanks destroyed, including, incredibly, 2 Tiger tanks. 2 Tigers knocked out by a guy in a fabric plane with shoulder-fired rockets strapped to the wings.
But beyond the actual kills, think about the psychological impact of that.
Immense. If that can happen, if even the sky isn't safe, if a flimsy little plane can kill a Tiger, then nowhere is safe. Sources say German units genuinely started hesitating to move their armor during daylight in areas where Bazooka Charlie was known to operate.
One guy with an improvised weapon system achieving strategic deterrence.
It perfectly illustrates the bazooka's real power. Finding the weak spot, exploiting it unexpectedly, and generating fear far beyond its technical specs. It's the ultimate loss of control for the tanker.
This really was a revolution, wasn't it?
Hmm.
The impact is clear from how the Germans reacted.
Absolutely. We talked about the Panzerschreck, their direct copy and upgrade. That tells you they saw the potential immediately.
But then came the Panzerfaust.
The Panzerfaust is even more telling. A cheap, disposable, one-shot heat weapon. By 44-45, they were turning these things out literally by the million.
Handing them out to everyone.
Regular army, yes, but also the Volkssturm old men, boys. Anyone who could point it vaguely towards a tank. It shows a total shift in doctrine. Mass-produced, close-range, anti-tank capability for everyone.
Both sides learned the same brutal lesson. Simple, shoulder-fired shaped charges had fundamentally changed the game.
And the Allies leaned into this hard with the bazooka. You have to remember the sheer numbers involved. It wasn't some rare specialist weapon.
What was the standard issue?
Official tables suggested maybe 24 bazookas per infantry battalion, but commanders in the field loved them. By late 44, many units had way more 40, maybe even 50 per battalion. Wasn't uncommon.
So every rifle company had several teams?
Multiple teams, roaming, looking for opportunities. That density, that saturation of the battlefield with these 2-man hunter-killer teams, that's what created the relentless pressure.
A panzer commander could maybe track 1 or 2 anti-tank gun positions. But how do you track dozens of potential bazooka teams hiding in every shadow?
You can't. And that constant, unseen threat grinds you down. It frays nerves, destroys morale, it gets inside the tank commander's head.
Which brings us, I think, to the absolute core reason for the fear. You called it violating the contract of armored warfare. Explain that.
Think about why someone crews a tank. Yes, it's dangerous, but there's a sort of implicit bargain. You accept the risk from other tanks, from big anti-tank guns, because you can fight back. You can see them, engage them, use your armor, your speed, your gun. It's a contest between equals, in a way.
Your armor is supposed to protect you from the small stuff, from the ordinary infantry soldier with his rifle.
Exactly, that's the contract. Your tank makes you largely immune to the average guy on the ground. The bazooka ripped that contract up.
Suddenly, any infantry soldier potentially could kill you. The guy you just drove past hiding in the ditch. The figure you glimpse in a window.
Seen or unseen. Your primary protection, your armor, was nullified at close range by a weapon any 2 men could carry and use with minimal training. Every hedge, every street corner, every building was now a potential death trap from an enemy you couldn't effectively suppress.
It was the loss of control, the loss of that perceived immunity.
Complete loss of control. And the Germans tried to counter it, didn't they? Those side skirts, the Schürzen, they started adding to Panthers and Panzersurfifs.
Thin steel plates hung on the sides. What was the idea there?
It was specifically designed to defeat shaped charges, primarily bazookas and PI-8s. The heat round needs to detonate at an optimal distance from the main armor to focus its jet properly.
Standoff distance.
Right. The thin Schürzen plate was intended to make the bazooka rocket detonate too early, hitting the skirt first. The molten jet would then have to travel through empty air before reaching the hull armor, losing focus and energy.
Making it much less likely to penetrate the main armor.
Exactly. It was basically spaced armor specifically against heat rounds. The very fact they went to the trouble of designing, producing, and fitting Schürzen is concrete proof of how seriously they took the threat from shoulder-fired shaped charges.
So the Panzer Arm, the guys who perfected Blitzkrieg, were forced onto the defensive.
Yeah.
Cautious movement, relying heavily on their own infantry to screen them.
Infantry support they often didn't have in sufficient numbers by late war. It slowed them down, made them hesitant. That psychological impact achieved a strategic effect.
It's credible when you think that Eisenhower himself rated the bazooka so highly, one of his 4 tools of victory.
Alongside the atomic bomb, the Jeep, and the C-47 transport plane. That's astonishing company for a weapon that, as we've said, had significant technical
It
limitations.
underscores that its true value wasn't just in blowing up tanks.
No, its value was in the friction it created, the hesitation it caused, the way it forced German armor to operate cautiously, slowly, burning more fuel, taking safer routes, waiting for infantry, stalling attacks. That was its real war-winning contribution, perhaps.
And that fear became ingrained. It lasted right to the end, even as better anti-tank weapons were coming online.
It did. Because for the veteran German tanker who survived the hedgerows or the rubble of Stalingrad or Cannes, that specific whoosh sound of a bazooka firing.
That sound meant imminent, unpredictable death from close range.
In that split second after hearing it, all the calculations about armor thickness and sloping angles were meaningless. You were just waiting to see if your number was up, waiting to see if you were about to be burned alive.
So the final lesson here seems clear. It's not always about the biggest gun or the thickest steel.
Not at all. Often the most effective weapon is the one that gets inside the enemy's head, the one that makes them too afraid to do their job properly. The bazooka achieved that against some of the most formidable tanks and crews ever fielded. It democratized terror on the battlefield.
A fascinating example of how ingenuity, mobility, and exploiting vulnerability can challenge pure technological might. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
And maybe that's the thought to leave our listeners with today. The bazooka showed how giving readily available, potent capability to the many could psychologically undermine the few with superior hardware. So the question for you is, what modern parallels exist? What systems today rely on that same principle, democratization, psychological shock, low cost, to challenge vastly more expensive and technologically advanced opponents?
Something to definitely chew on. Think about asymmetric warfare today, the tools being used. Where do you see the bazooka's legacy?
Until next time, keep digging into history.